On today's show, how the Ottawa Senators dodged a bullet after reports of a failed Josh Norris trade came out.
We continue our 2025 NHL Draft Rankings, and I've got my first 5-star player.
This is Brady Tkachuk, and you're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast.
Your Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome. You are locked on to the Ottawa Senators, the only daily podcast covering the Sens. On the outskirts of enemy territory, I'm Ross Levitan, alongside Brandon Piller up in the Blue Mountains. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first ticket purchase. Not only sports, they got comedy, theater, and more. You need tickets? Go check them out at Game Time. Today is Tuesday, June 10th, and Pilsy. After a day yesterday full of rumors from around the league, we've got a Sens topic that we can really dig our teeth into. Darren Dreger reported yesterday that the Sens and Vancouver Canucks were, quote, close on a deal that would have involved Josh Norris for Filip Chytil and a draft pick.
Yeah, what a bombshell. I mean, Ross, one of my favorite topics is learning and discussing trades that never happened. I can't wait for someone to write a book one day of all the NHL trades that were close to happening and then fell through. We know a bunch of big ones for the Sens in the past, but this is a big one for sure. And it's not really that surprising because we had heard Josh Norris's name kind of attached to the Vancouver Canucks for quite some while. And especially after they traded JT Miller, it seemed like those talks really heated up that that's something the Canucks could do. Now, when you're looking at now, Ross, let's take a look at the full picture here. Steve Staios was juggling possible trades for Josh Norris to the Buffalo Sabres, the San Jose Sharks, and the Vancouver Canucks. And who knows, maybe there was more teams involved in that. So he was working the phones that day or leading up to that day for sure. I, for one, Ross, I'm glad that this is a trade that stayed on the table and did not make it through the phones of the GMs to the NHL.
And for a number of reasons. Look, first and foremost, I like Filip Chytil as a player when he plays.
Yeah.
He was in the New York Rangers trade for JT Miller, so it would have been a second move for him during the season. And there's a reason why the Rangers gave up on the former first-round pick from back in 2017. He has had an extraordinarily tough time battling concussions. And of course, injuries are something you never want to see. You hope he can get back to being a player who plays 82 games. He never has in his career. The most he's played is 74. You know how many games he played after the trade deadline this season, Pilsy?
Hardly any. I'm going to say 10.
4.
Yeah. Played
4 games. And this was after trying to return from another concussion. It is, I don't know if luck's the right word, but it is critically important for the Ottawa Senators playoff push this year that the player they got back for Josh Norris played and contributed. If they had moved it, it would have felt like, why give up Norris then outside of the contract? Like, you'd obviously be saving more money if Filip Chytil was coming back, but you needed a guy to play in your top 6 at center. And if Filip Chytil had been the guy, it would have been a complete disaster because you wouldn't have had anybody and we would have been right back where we were whenever Josh Norris was unavailable.
And concussions are a much more frequent and serious injury concern to have at that age than even the shoulder injury for a center is, right? So I think that would have been a downgrade in health security going from Josh Norris to Chytil. It just wouldn't have made any sense. Ross, I'm not even a fan of Chytil when he's healthy. I mean, his best season was 45 points in 74 games. Now, that was a couple of years ago, so you would have hoped that, with some more development and better health, he could build on that. But I don't see the fit at all. Even if it was Chytil and a first for Josh Norris straight up, that's not a trade I would have any interest in, honestly. So I'm very glad that they went the Dylan Cousins route. Much better health security, signed long term, saving money on Josh Norris, has good chemistry with Drake Batherson, who's not moving, staying in Ottawa Senator. So that is a big sigh of relief for me to hear that that was not the trade made, and especially Ross. The Sens needed to move on from Jacob Bernard-Docker, so attaching him to that deal was good, not only for the Sens, but JBD as well. And the Sens got a second-round pick back in that deal as well. So I don't think there's no, like, you would have had to attach multiple draft picks for me to even consider doing that deal. And I think if it did happen, Ross, it would almost just be like, okay, let's give Chytil a chance and maybe he works out, but it's an added bonus. You're more doing it to dump Norris's contract and roll the dice on a younger player, which didn't make sense in my eyes.
Chytil still has 2 years left on his deal at a $4.4 million cap hit. But when you talk injuries with him, he had his 5th recorded concussion this season. That's not something that you want to be trading what was a core piece of your organization for.
I can't believe, like, look at the Vancouver Canucks. It's insane that now I know they had to move one of JT Miller or Pettersson, and Miller kind of made it difficult on them with the destinations he would accept deals to. But that is just a bad return for the Canucks are in trouble. It's wild. We got to talk to the Locked On Canucks boys, Ross, and revisit when Kyle joined us on that postcast and we were crying to him about how bad it was for the Sens. And we wish the Sens could follow the Canucks model, and him telling us it's not that bad. And now look at things. Oh my God.
Yeah. And Dylan Cousins came to Ottawa and had 16 points in 21 games, was a -4. Filip Chytil in 15 games after being acquired by the Vancouver Canucks was a -11 with 2 goals and 6 points while playing a comparable amount of time on ice, just seconds apart in an average per game. So Ottawa gets Dylan Cousins. They have a lot of term left with them. I'm excited to see Dylan Cousins play a full season with a training camp under his belt with the Senators, obviously leaving the only organization he had played for since being drafted in 2019, which also means he's 2 years younger than Filip Chytil. So this feels like they just avoided complete catastrophe had they decided to go on. Like, even if it was Filip Chytil and the first round pick that is now, we know, 15th overall for the Vancouver Canucks, that's still knowing that. And then when that trade was made, Vancouver still thought they were going to make the playoffs, so it would have been a mid to late first round pick. Like, that's still nothing you would touch, knowing now that that would have been the 15th overall pick.
And the Sens don't make the playoffs. Let's be honest. If that's the deal and Chytil gets hurt like that, this team doesn't make the playoffs.
So avoiding disaster there. Again, maybe Josh Norris finds his way to Vancouver this summer. I think that would be great for him. But thankfully, it was not the Ottawa Senators sending them there in a deal that would have included Filip Chytil and a pick. Holy smokes. What a little piece of information that was. What trades that didn't happen were you thinking about when it came to the Ottawa Senators?
Oh, man, I thought you'd be all over this, or maybe you are. You're just teeing me up. CC for Taylor Hall.
Yeah.
I mean, and that was back in the day. Consider how that would have changed the way the Ottawa Senators look. Steve Yzerman was rumored to be possibly coming home to Ottawa. I forget what was supposed to come back the other way.
Alexei Ashen.
Right. There was a rumored trade to send Daniel Alfredsson out of Ottawa. That would have been an absolute disaster. Those are the big 3 ones that come to my mind.
Yeah, well, one that comes to mind only after reading Steve Warren's article from 2023, where he looked back at a few of them, and I pulled this up after we'd already discussed 2 of the 3 that he mentioned. But did you know that in 1998, the Ottawa Senators almost acquired Darcy Tucker?
Oh, yeah. No, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So there's a real story behind this where a high-ranking Senators executive said that Tampa's preference was to send Darcy Tucker to Ottawa in exchange for general manager Rick Dudley.
Oh, man, I miss the days where you could trade managers and coaches for players and picks. That is awesome.
Ottawa ended up getting Rob Zamner in the trade instead. The Senators gave it some thought to get Darcy Tucker, but instead they were the ones that chose Zamner, who had just been on the Olympic team with Team Canada, beating out Mark Messier for a job on that Nagano 1998 team.
That's crazy.
Just a few months later, as Steve Warren points out, the Battle of Ontario began, and I'm sure the Senators would have liked to have Darcy Tucker in the trenches for that one. Who's going to be in the trenches in future battles, whether it's the Battle of Ontario or otherwise for the Ottawa Senators? We're getting close on our top 50 countdown to where the Senators select at 21st overall. Pillsy teased it. He's got a 5-star guy on today's show. Who is it? That's next. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Indeed. You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. Well, how can you find amazing candidates fast? It's easy, guys. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed sponsored job post puts your post at the top of the page so you can help reach the right candidates faster. You've been in that spot where you need the right hire like yesterday, and every day without that person is a setback for your business. That's exactly when to use Indeed sponsored jobs. So go to Indeed.com and speed up your hiring process with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/locked-on right now, and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, Indeed, is all you need.
All right, Pillsy, the NHL draft is coming up in a hurry. Not this Friday, not next Friday, but June 27th from Los Angeles, the first decentralized non-COVID draft. The draft will run June 27th and 28th. Our full first-round mock draft will be out on June 15th. Happy Father's Day, y'all. Enjoy a premiere of the mock draft all day long. And then it will be available for you exclusively on YouTube with timestamps galore, so you can jump through and learn about all the great prospects that will be taken in the first round, likely. We did at one point get more first-round picks than Bob McKenzie, but that was in our rankings, not our mock draft. This time, we ain't got nothing to do with this. We've got experts making about 4 picks each, and they will control which way it goes. But it's so fun to get their insight, Pillsy, just the different thought processes behind how they've ranked players, how they view them, and where they see a good fit.
Yeah, my favorite thing, Ross, is to expose how the entire mock draft went to each of our analysts and just watch their eyes light up and be like, what? This guy here? No, that's not happening. Or, ooh, this guy here, that makes a lot of sense. Or they're too high on this guy. You're too low on this guy. All those things are just fascinating to see how the different scouts have different opinions and agree on things or are enlightened by other people's ideas.
And there's one pick that people are looking at and saying, holy smokes, you just threw a wrench into the rest of the draft. So what's it going to be? Stay tuned to find out here on our 4th annual full first round mock draft. We love doing it because the response has just been incredible. So we will continue to do them as often as the people want. Speaking of which, shout out to the everydayers making us your first listen. Super appreciative that the numbers are still buzzing, despite it being now over a month since the Senators played their last game. There is still hockey on somehow, some way, Pillsy. Like, the breaks between games are outrageous, but so was the score last night. 6-1 beat down by the Panthers, and now they've got a 2-1 series lead.
Yeah, it was nuts. Look, the breaks between the travel days of Florida and Edmonton, I don't love it, but I get it. A 2-day break from games 3 and 4 when they're still in Florida is... The NHL has to have, like, is Taylor Swift playing there or something? Like, what is the reason to gap it like that?
Well, I can tell you that Gene Principe may not make it to game 4. Do you see the tan on this guy?
Yeah, that was wild, tan. That guy was glowing, and maybe not necessarily in the positive sense. The Edmonton Oilers were not glowing in a positive sense, I'll tell you that, because it seemed like Florida had their way with them scoring early, and then Edmonton finally got one, and then boom, Florida bounced back right away. I shut the game off halfway through the second, Ross. I was like, I know this game is over. And I went back to doing my draft prep, to be honest.
Hell yeah. Well, speaking of which, man, this is an exciting day. Coming in at number 24 on our Locked On Senators NHL Draft Rankings, from the Edmonton Oil Kings right shot defenseman, Blake Fiddler.
Oh, man, I'm excited about Blake Fiddler, Ross. Obviously, but son of former NHLer Vern Fiddler. People might remember he was a grinder type player that really had a meanness to his game. Blake, maybe not as mean, but what he lacks in the meanness, he makes up for in size. What do we have Blake Fiddler's size at, Ross, officially updated from the combine?
Yeah, at the combine, he came in at 6'5", 220 pounds, and he doesn't turn 18 until July.
Yeah, so that size you can count on. He might even grow some more, which is crazy. Right-hand shot defenseman with that kind of size is coveted. In 64 games with the Edmonton Oil Kings last season, 10 goals, 23 assists, good for 33 points, a +6. Now, maybe you're sitting there and being like, okay, 33 points in 64 games. Like, that's not bad, but it's not anything to really jump out about. Where Blake Fiddler shines is not putting up points, although he can do it, and he has flashes of really nice offense. But what I like about him is he plays with energy. He's got a nice wrist shot when he needs to use it. Scott Wheeler mentioned that he's smart in the defensive zone, defends the rush well with good gaps and good stick, and he's able to transition the puck up the ice. What a dual threat, Ross, to be able to shut guys down. And then once you've shut them down and taken the puck from them, you don't need to slide it over to your smooth skating offensive defenseman on your left side. Blake Fiddler can do that all on his own, and he can do it with really good success. So that's where you get the combo of size, defensive game, transition, and for a guy that's his size, he has really nice mobility. So you're getting a pretty complete package here as far as, you know, the raw prospect items go in Blake Fiddler.
Yeah, instead of going D to D, just goes backhand to forehand, takes a few strides, and away he goes. Sebastian High from Locked On NHL Prospects has him the highest of our scouts at 19th overall. Bob McKenzie's midterms, he was at 21. McKean's has him at 22. Elite Prospects at 23. Scott Wheeler at 29. And Craig Button at 39, not quite sold on Blake Fiddler. I am, though. I think that this guy would be an awesome pick for whoever gets him, but I think Ottawa in particular, I know they went right shot defenseman last year, 7th overall with Carter Yakimchuk, but he feels like the perfect second pair right shot guy at his peak where you do not have to worry about the minutes he plays. He'll give you 20, 22 good ones a night. And I love the fact that he's also one of the younger players in the draft. I think that shows there's still so much room to grow for him, and his profile and his skill set, it just feels like it fits what so many teams are looking for right now, where you want a shutdown defenseman, but you want them to be able to have that offensive upside to go along with it.
Yeah, I don't know how much offensive upside he's going to have, but when he's in spots where he has a lane, he's got a really nice wrister that he can make happen. I think the key for Fiddler is the fact that he doesn't need to rely on having a puck-moving defenseman beside him like most big shutdown guys need. He's someone that has good leadership qualities. He was the captain of Team USA at the Hlinka Gretzky Cup. He had 3 points in 7 U18 games. So there's a lot to like about this kid. Now, there are some deterrents for him. Most scouts say he's got to work on his decision making and reading the play, so that's something that will come with more time and more experience. But he is willing to try different things in transition. Like you said, he's got a good transition game, but sometimes he tries to pull something off. It doesn't always work. Sometimes it does, though. But kind of the general consensus are scouts are saying he will be a bit of a project to put everything together. But I don't know. You mentioned it, Ross. How young he is, the size he is already, the mobility he has, the defensive game he has. In a pinch, he can provide some offense at this level. Like, I just see this guy as is maybe take a couple years in the AHL to figure it out. But once he does, I think he's going to be a really nice bottom 4 defenseman.
Here's why I think he has more offensive upside than maybe you or the consensus believes. And one is what you mentioned, the decision making, which under good coaching, I believe you can make better decisions, when to pinch, how to keep pucks in at the offensive zone. And two, his attribute offensively that needs the most work is his shot. It's the lowest rated of any of his assets on the Elite Prospects Draft Guide. As he gets older and stronger, I'm sure that at 6'5", let's say he plays at 220, he's going to be able to lean into the puck and find lanes. So I think that that's where I have a little more confidence that he could. I don't think he's going to be a 50-point guy, but that he can be that 35 to 40-point guy on the back end, along with everything else that he does with the puck. Also, if he's in a good situation with forwards, let's say Tim Stützle, for example, where you give him the puck with a great clean outlet pass and all of a sudden you're racking up assists that way, that's another way some more offense could pop numbers-wise for him.
No, that's fair. I actually think he has a decent wrist shot. I think maybe where he loses points on his shot, Ross, of all the highlights I watch, and I mean, obviously I'm not like live tracking this guy shift by shift a lot, but from the highlights I watched, I didn't see him pull out a clap bomb, a slap shot, a one-timer one single time. And I think if you're a guy of that size, just lean into it, get some flex on that stick and just let it rip. Maybe you end up missing the net a little bit more often, or getting blocked or hitting sticks and shin pads and stuff like that. But I would like to see, and maybe I'm off on this, maybe he does use a slap shot. He just didn't score with it, and that's why it's not showing up on highlight reels. But I would like to see him try to utilize a harder slap shot a little bit more often.
All that said, Pillsy, your Sens stars for Blake Fiddler.
Here it is, the moment everyone's been waiting for. No more 3 stars, no more 3.5 stars, not even 4 or 4.5, Ross. 5-star guy, Blake Fiddler. I want the Ottawa Senators to draft this guy. At 21, I think it makes so much sense. The other right shot defenseman that you would consider will most likely be gone before you get here. I don't think a centerman is the best position of need here. And I just start thinking, Ross, if you've got a decor of Jake Sanderson, Thomas Chabot, Clevin on your left side, and then on your right side, Zub, Yakimchuk, and Fiddler, that completes the 6 there so nicely. Obviously, it's going to take Fiddler some time to join those guys if he does get drafted by the Sens. But this is a guy, if the Ottawa Senators took him, I would be fist pumping out of my chair, clapping, stoked for it, which has never happened, really.
Hey, when they took Timmy.
Yeah. Although I've been honest about it. I was a Quentin Byfield guy, so I was happy about Timmy, but he wasn't my guy at that draft. Byfield was already gone. Obviously, I love Timmy now. And I was a big Sanderson guy, so those would be the 2 changes. But I mean, if you're missing in the top 5, you've got serious issues. So
Blake Fiddler just finished his 2nd season in the Western Hockey League and doubled his point totals, went from -31 to +6. Edmonton made it to the first round of the WHL playoffs. So I'm expecting a huge draft +1 season for Blake Fiddler, who, with an average ranking of 25 on the dot, comes in at number 24 on our Locked On Senators NHL Draft Rankings. For more draft profiles, make sure to check us out on YouTube. We are posting every single profile. You can check them out before or even after the National Hockey League draft. All right, on the other side, we've got another spark plug. Is he Alex DeBrincat with effort? That conversation's next. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day.
Today's episode is also brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. There's nothing like playoff hockey. The Stanley Cup Finals, the energy, the rivalries, the nonstop action. With the Stanley Cup Finals here, there's never been a better time to see it live, and Game Time makes getting in the building fast and affordable, giving you last-minute ticket deals, zone deals for deep discounts, panoramic seat views, and all-in pricing with no hidden fees. You can save huge...
Hey, don't forget to get a new account so that you can use our promo code LOCKEDONNHL, $20 off. Boom, there's a stop at the concessions for you right there.
There you go. And with zone deals, they pick the best seats at the lowest price. Last minute deals, you can save up to 60% off buying last minute tickets for sports, concert, comedy, theater. And I use Game Time. I'm heading to New York this week. I use Game Time to get my concert tickets and go see a show on Broadway. So you can use Game Time for more than just sports. They've got their fees up front if you put in the all-in pricing with their ticket coverage guarantee, covering cancellations, job loss, and even offering 24-hour return. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed.
All right, Pillsy, so lots of focus here on Locked On Senators about the NHL draft coming up, and rightfully so. But did you know that today is 3 weeks from Canada Day, which also happens to be the day free agency opens? Are you at all surprised that we haven't heard more signing news coming out of Ottawa?
Yeah, surprised, disappointed. Both those words would work here. I'm starting to approach getting nervous about Claude Giroux. I'm not nervous about Claude Giroux yet, but I'm getting close to being nervous.
There has to be common ground. The fact, and we didn't even touch on this, there's so many other juicy topics coming out of Friday's media availability with Michael Andlauer and Steve Stais. You can catch up on that on Locked On Senators Monday show, or Friday show. We had it the day that it came out. Michael Andlauer noted that he was in the negotiation room with Pat Brisson, Claude Giroux's agent, and he said that the importance of Claude Giroux to our organization and what he's done for us, he felt like he wanted to be involved in that preliminary conversation. How many owners are going to be in conversations regarding unrestricted free agents pending? I think that to me shows that a deal, it has to get done. I'm convinced it will get done.
Yeah, I'm convinced too, Ross. It just throws this roster for such a curveball if Claude Giroux's not here. I expect it'll get done within a week or two.
Yes. Okay, we also asked on Twitter about our conversation, the first segment. Now that we have the hindsight of where the Vancouver Canucks are drafting, we don't know that it would have been a first-round pick. And some are saying that the second-round pick Ottawa got with Dylan Cousins was influenced partially, maybe a little bit, by the fact that Jacob Bernard-Docker was in the deal. Buffalo did want him. But this is hypothetical for a reason. If it was Norris for Cousins and Buffalo's second-round pick next year, or Norris for Chytil and Vancouver's first-round pick this year, knowing that it's 15th overall, which do you prefer? Pilsy will give his answer at the end of today's show. The poll results are very one-sided. Back to our 2025 Locked On Senators NHL Draft Rankings. Coming in at number 23 with a bit of an asterisk that we'll get to, it's Cameron Schmidt of the Vancouver Giants.
Yes, Ross, he plays for the Giants, but he is anything but a Giant in stature. But don't overlook him, even though it's easy to do when he's only 5'8", because this guy is an absolute water bug out on the ice. Cameron Schmidt, right winger with the Vancouver Giants. He put up big numbers this year in 61 games, 40 goals, 38 assists, 78 points total. Finished a -7. And then in the playoffs, he popped off too. Things didn't go the Giants' way, unfortunately, as they ran into a hot Spokane Chiefs team. But in 5 games, he had 9 points, including 4 goals in 5 games. So Cameron Schmidt had his guy when it came to the playoffs.
He is a January 07 birthday, so turned 18 in the middle of this season. He's now 5'8". He was listed previously at 5'7" at the scouting combine, came in at 5'8", 160 pounds. But 40 goals is 40 goals. I don't care whether you're 5'2" or 6'8". That's impressive. And he did it on a team where, let's be honest here, without Cameron Schmidt putting up those points, do they even make the playoffs in the WHL? I think would be a fair conversation to have. He led that team wholeheartedly, had 6 more points than the next player who happened to be a defenseman. He had 16 more points than the next forward on that team. He was their everything in all situations. And there's a reason why Craig Button is so high on him at 17th overall. Fun fact, Craig Button's previous rankings had Cameron Schmidt at 8th overall. He has undeniable talent. Everyone else is a little bit lower. Locked On NHL Prospects, Sebastian has him at 20 on his list. Elite Prospects at 22. McKean's had him at 22. That's where the asterisk comes in. But they have now put Blake Fiddler at 22, and they have omitted Cameron Schmidt from their top 32. They do not see him right now as a first-round talent. Neither does Scott Wheeler. He has Cameron Schmidt at 36 on his list. Corey Pronman did a top 36 and did not include Cameron Schmidt. At the midterms, Bob McKenzie had him at 30th on his list. In the playoffs, Cameron Schmidt had 9 points, again, leading the team in that category. He had the most goals on the team as well with 4, double anybody else. I just feel like if this guy was playing in a top tier organization at this time, nothing against Vancouver, but just where they are in their rebuild cycle, like if you put him on Medicine Hat, the team that won the Western Hockey League, or Spokane, the team that dummied Vancouver in the playoffs, how many points does he put up there?
Well, maybe less, Ross.
No chance.
Because he, like you said, he was the be-all, end-all guy for this team. And sometimes to a detriment, though. Like, one of Wheeler's comments and why he has him lower than some other guys is Wheeler mentions he's frustrated by the shot selection and that Cameron Schmidt's always trying to do everything by himself. So I guess I hear what you're saying. If he had some more help, he'd be able to facilitate.
With a shot like that?
Yeah. And it's an incredible shot. EP gave him best shot of the draft, of the entire draft, and best straight line skater, even higher skating grades than Cullen Potter, who we just covered, who was an excellent skater. So I guess I'll give it to you. He probably does put up more points on a better team.
And look, you just mentioned exactly where I was going with this. What are the two most important things to be a good hockey player? Skating and shooting.
It's important.
And they have them at Elite Prospects. Their scouting polls. This isn't just what they think. This is what the NHL scouts think. That he's number 1 in both straight line skating and shooting. So how on earth is he potentially not a first round pick?
I think that's where the 5'8", 160 pounds comes into this, and I hate to do this. Cameron Schmidt is probably so sick of hearing about this, and for a little guy, he actually does play pretty physical. But again, that might be a detriment. Some scouts are worried that he plays above his size, and in junior, that might not be a big problem. But in the pros, if you think you're a scrappy bulldog and you go up against some of the tall tree hulking defensemen and you think, hey, I'm not going to back down from this guy, I'm going to go in there, you're going to get reverse hit very hard, especially with the speed he has. If he's coming in fast and gets reverse hit, it could cause problems. Or maybe he necessarily doesn't always have his head up when he's zipping through the zone, and that's where issues start to happen. So this is a guy that has serious high risk, high reward, because talked about it. Best shot, best straight line skater. If that pans out, you're looking at Cole Caulfield type player. EP called him a turbocharged Alex DeBrincat. Say what you want on the Locked On Senators podcast about Cole Caulfield and Alex DeBrincat, maybe not two of our favorite players, but those guys are little guys that can score and at efficient rates and consistently in the NHL. And I think Cameron Schmidt could do it too.
I think so too. But you have to have the understanding that there's a world where he could be a 100-point guy in the American Hockey League for his career. I feel like this is boom, or maybe not an NHLer at all.
Yeah, and that's fair, and because he's not going to play a bottom 6 role, right? So, like, if he can't crack the top 6 part of the lineup and can't beat opponents' top defenders and shut down D pairs, I don't know where his place is going to be in the NHL. But, I mean, we're getting ahead of ourselves here, but that's why you see some scouts that are like, man, the skill is undeniable. You got to rank this guy high, and then other scouts that are like, if this doesn't pan out, what are you left with?
Yeah, didn't really have the most impact at the World Under-18s. Had 2 goals and an assist in the first game, a 9-2 win over Slovakia, and then went pointless for 5 straight before getting 1 assist in a 7-0 win in the gold medal game against Sweden. So in a bottom 6 role, right? He was only averaging about 15 minutes per game during that tournament. If you tell me, though, that he's top 5 in goals in this draft class 10 years from now, I would believe you. And if you told me that he's not top 10 in games played, or not even top 20 in games played, I would believe you as well. So teams are going to have to do their due diligence. It's unfortunate for him that you got to get drafted this young, because I feel like next season could be a pivotal one in terms of establishing that, hey, I'm here. This Vancouver team likely going to be a bit better next year. What's he going to do? He's going to be fascinating to follow no matter whether your team drafts him or not, because he is a true wild card in this. And since you mentioned DeBrincat, it's worth noting that after destroying junior hockey the year after his teammate, you might have heard of him, Connor McDavid, went to the NHL. So he didn't have Connor McDavid. He did, however, have Dylan Strome, another great playmaker. But DeBrincat went 39th overall.
Yeah.
Not where you think, or not where you would, but where you think Cameron Schmidt would go. Does he go higher than DeBrincat's 39th overall or after?
Man, in my mind, I don't see how he doesn't get picked in the top round. But what do I think will happen? I'm going to say late second, or early second.
Okay,
Sorry.
yeah. One of the first players off the board in the second round is my guess. There's another player, and it's a team that has no problem taking smaller players. In this case, they traded for him. But Logan Stankoven went 47th overall in his draft year, and that's worked out pretty darn well. So how many Sens stars for Cameron Schmidt?
I gave him 4 Sens stars, Ross. This is not the type of player the Ottawa Senators like. I would be shocked if they took
He's
Cameron
probably not top 100 on their list.
Yeah, honestly, probably not. I wouldn't even be surprised if they didn't even talk to him, unless he had a good joke ready for them. But I like this guy. I believe he can get it done. These are the types of guys. Cameron Schmidt's had a chip on his shoulder his entire life. He is hungry to prove everyone wrong and be like, why would you think I can't be an Alex DeBrincat, a Cole Caulfield, a Logan Stankoven, go down the list of all those little guys that actually end up playing and working out very well. So I believe in him. I don't think the Sens will draft him. 4-star player.
Who's the smallest player in Sens history that's had a big impact?
I mean, Tyler Ennis is kind of small.
Brian Gibbons had a good run.
Yeah, Corey Conacher did not have a big impact.
No,
but that's a small guy. Oh, Eric Branstrom, easy.
Let us know in the comments if we missed anybody there. But Cameron Schmidt comes in at number 23 on our Locked On Senators NHL Draft Rankings. Again, with a bit of an asterisk with the average rank of 24.5. He would have slid down our board after McKean's put him lower. But 23rd on our list for all of our draft profiles. Make sure to check us out on YouTube in the mock draft, where if he is a first-round pick, does Cameron Schmidt end up? All right, Pilsy, I've got a thought for you. I've been thinking about this for a long time, ever since a conversation over breakfast. And look, eggs are delicious.
Love eggs.
Chicken, as I'm sure you believe, delicious.
Okay, good. Yeah.
Is it weird eating chicken with egg?
This is a good question. Yes, it is weird, but it shouldn't be. And it's only weird when it's deadly obvious. Like, think about like a chicken sandwich. You're probably putting mayo on that.
How about breaded chicken with egg wash?
Yep, that's a perfect example too. Chicken salad sandwich. There's lots of times where you're mixing eggs and chicken together, and when you don't think about it, it doesn't seem weird. But if you were to give me a breakfast sandwich with a piece of chicken and a fried egg on top of it, I mean, I'm probably still down, but it is weird for sure.
Yeah. And like you never have like scrambled eggs. You'd have, with like a chicken thigh.
No.
Or chicken breast, chicken cut up in it. Like you'd cut up bacon in it. You could have steak and eggs. It's a classic.
Yeah.
But not chicken.
I love steak and eggs. Would you wash down a steak with a glass of milk?
Damn. There's your comparable right there. There's too many variables with this conversation.
Yeah, we got to ask Jacob Chytil what milk goes best with steak.
Yeah, that's the last guy I need his opinion on that. You see him hugging a tree the other day? He's like, when's the last time you hugged a tree? And for most people, he'd be like, haha, that's funny. I think he was like seriously thinking that there would be benefits to his growth or recovery.
That's the Liver King message. Go out and touch a tree, feel connected to a tree. So Jacob Chytil, I'm sure, is doing all of the primal teachings of the Liver King, who was on steroids the whole time, just like everybody knew. I
bet you Chytil would not eat chicken with eggs. But let us know in the comments if you would, because it is kind of a strange combination. But then we just had like 5 examples of times where it's very normal and accepted to have chicken with egg. Phil, any final thoughts on today's show?
Well, and just one quickly, if you're stuck in the chicken and egg situation, just eat more chicken. When in doubt, chicken. Eggs are great, but keep buying and supporting the chicken meat industry.
The chicken farming industry. And make sure to go check out our friends over at Farm to Fork by using our promo code as well. Locked On 40 gets you $40 off your first purchase. Farm to Fork grilling season is here. Pillsy, you know what else is here? The early returns on our hypothetical poll question. You're with Dylan Cousins in a second round pick. But what are the people with? Oh, Pillsy's created on 1 million accounts, and he's going with the same. But I think where this becomes interesting, and we've had a few comments from, Tyler's written in. We've had others who Mark is saying that, like, hey, that 15th overall pick being in there is tempting because it is hindsight 2020. Senator says that you'd have to know what Ottawa was going to do with that extra $2.66 million in cap space that they would get if they had acquired Chytil instead of Cousins. Are you going to go out and get Timmy a $10-ish million winger instead of a lower one? It's a great point by Senator. And Always Sens is Pillsy's burner account, clearly. He says if Vancouver had added Eric Brandstrom, it would have been a deal.
Nice. Any part of the Chytil conversation for me, like, I get all those things, 15th overall, then you can maybe look at either moving 15th or 21st, and you got more cap space to make things work. I like that. That's attractive. But Chytil is just a wash for me. Like, and again, I feel bad. It's not his fault, but that many concussions that early. And even, like I mentioned, I'm not that big on him even when he is healthy, but he just doesn't fit into your lineup. He's a third line center, in my opinion. Then you have to elevate Shane Pinto. And then when he's injured, Ridley Gregg has to play down the middle, which isn't the worst, but it just brings us back to the issues we had when Norris and or Pinto were hurt. And so it would just, like, you might as well just say, hey, don't bother giving us Chytil. Just give us more draft capital, honestly.
Yeah, and Ottawa making the pick in the trade decision, again, not knowing if it was a first-round pick, but for the sake of the conversation, we're saying it was. The fans still say Norris for Cousins and a second. 86% of the citizens on Twitter are voting in that direction. So Ottawa will still have plenty of decisions to make, but that was one they made the right one at the trade deadline. For today, we say goodbye. We'll be back tomorrow, and we are almost there. Yes, tomorrow we will have who our 21st ranked prospect is on our draft rankings, which will be where the Senators select. So stay tuned for that. And maybe Steady Stevie will be signing Stevie tomorrow. If we get some news, you know that you can find us here. Immediate reaction whenever the Senators do make moves. For today, we say goodbye. Thank you so much for liking, watching, listening, and engaging with the show. For Brandon Piller, I'm Ross Levitan. This has been another edition of the Locked On Senators podcast, your team every day.